I want to show the intelligentsia of our peer group, Jared. Our peer group saved me, really, because it was the standard in which, or the barometer, when grief had fell upon me after, my, loss of my wife, grandparents, other things like that, and the world enacted upon me. And so Lansing has always been my Bethlehem and my paradise, my blessing and my curse. So why it's my blessing, and you hear as a listen to this, a Holy Spirit verifier that the ideas that I have and want to do, and we've talked about it since childhood, we can make it happen here. Right here in this docile place where it seems as though. But once we make up our minds and we come into group consciousness on a consensus, and we got that, bro.
My name is Derek Foy. I named my business after my dad. My dad was named Willie. And since my name is Derek and my kids all named D, I call my business Willie D's.
All right, what do you specialize in?
Rib tips, chicken, ribs, brisket, pulled pork, basically anything smoked, sausage, salmon.
All right, how'd you get into cooking?
My dad, he was, master of everything, so he used to build grills. I started back there, I was about 15, back there barbecuing with my pops.
All right, when was the first time you knew you could sell a plate and what was the feeling when you sold your first plate?
The first plate I sold was, I'm gonna say my mother's driveway. I had a garage sale. She was getting a bunch of stuff out the way, so she was selling the old stuff and I was selling barbecue, and after that, it was over with. So about 30 plates in 3 hours. And I knew I was a rib tip king after that.
All right, so where can we find you at?
You can find me at BW's Hair Fashion on Holmes and Pleasant Grove.
All right, give me a little bit about the menu and how you select the menu and how does all that happen?
I select the menu by mostly what the people want. People come mainly for rib tips, so I'm gonna make sure I have at least 90 pounds of rib tips smoking a day. Other than that, it's chicken wings, ribs, and beef brisket. I just learned how to do the beef brisket about 2 months ago. So it's going pretty good.
You're watching Searching for Hip Hop. On this week's episode, we talked to Terrence Cooper and Aaron Blankenburg about the protests in Lansing, Michigan, and how the citizens were tear gassed. You're watching Searching for Hip Hop.
AB has been there. AB, he'll go to the thick of things. I love it. I love, people like that. Basically, that day started off real interesting. I wasn't going to go to the protest. I wasn't going to be involved in it at all.
What type of system is they supposed to believe in some shit like that would do something like that to them? They supposed to trust some shit like that to protect them, that would shoot tear gas at them while they sitting on their asses?
I did want to go down there and see what the turnout was. So when I got down there, I talked to AB and I talked to a couple other people, and we were like, man, there's not a lot of adults here. There was a lot of kids that were partying, and they were just kind of having fun because they were just out there, you know what I mean? And it wasn't really about the matter at hand as much as it was as them having something to do. With COVID, with everybody being locked up, it was a time, we can get out the house now type of deal.
And then you had these parents and people that wasn't up here the next day, and this alliance that the mayor done formed with some people that wasn't even around here. Well, a few days later, they had another march and tried to upstage what these kids did.
So my first thing was to go make sure our youth was okay, make sure everything was, to help, you know what I mean? To make sure that there wasn't no violence going on, to make sure there wasn't nobody beating on nobody, to make sure they didn't get off topic, you know what I mean?
No, what these kids did was real. It was real. That shit them couple days after was some fake stage shit. That shit them kids did was real raw emotion, fighting for change. That shit that happened a couple days later wasn't nothing but an act.
We kind of got to talking and we didn't see enough leaders. We didn't see nobody there. So you had a whole bunch of kids up there talking and you had a whole bunch of kids up there, but they didn't have the knowledge that they needed or, you know what I mean, to actually know what they're marching for.
It was some bullshit. And all y'all is foul as hell for walking with that man after he tear gassed these kids. Wasn't shit peaceful about that when he tear gassed these kids.
And so it was kind of like a bunch of kids on an ill mission out there. And that's what it started out as. So a couple of older cats did get on the microphone. I did take on the microphone and I did talk to the kids for a brief second and explain to them how that Lansing police as a whole, like Chief Green and those guys, they're not that bad. We don't deal with a lot. I know we see a lot of stuff about the numbers and how many blacks get pulled over and stuff. Well, they patrol a predominantly black area, so it's going to be like that. I think that we have more problems with the police as far as like once we drive to the outskirts or once we get out of Lansing city limits. That's where a lot of people have had most of their issues with.
And then he gonna stage some shit a couple days later, like this is how they supposed to do it? No, fuck that. And y'all rode with that shit? Nobody that was down here would have rolled with no shit like that.
So back to the protest, I basically explained that to him. I explained to him where we had police brutality issues at. I explained to him where that, you know, the cases, like the East Lansing had a couple cases that was going on currently while we were actually down there on the steps. East Lansing was fighting, Tito, the guy that got beat up for the unruly arrest or whatever. So I said, if you guys are gonna march or something, just have a reason to march. And I explained to him that this was not a one-day fight. This was not just gonna be something that we could go march and tear up everything and then, you know, it's over. It's more to that than this. And that's kind of where I took
some real change. Some real change has to be next. A lot of people talking about change, and ain't nobody done nothing yet since he tear gassed these babies, since all this systematic racism talk. We ain't getting no change yet. We getting a whole lot of talk still.
I learned a lot from that day because I said, it's enough people marching and pro. Where are the people that's actually fighting, you know what I mean, to get into those rooms, to get into those tables, you know what I mean, and to be able to change instead of going and doing it. I feel very, I don't know, I just think that we've tried the protest and the tearing up stuff so much already, and we've seen over the years what that's got, and so I think that we need to learn from I think that we had to learn from our mistakes and learn from what didn't work in the past. So that was my message to them. So as the day continued, they ended up marching down Michigan. They got to East Lansing. Like I said, I wasn't really into it. I was just following behind them, making sure there was a police buggy, not even 2 lanes behind me. They were behind me, following the crowd. About 2,500 people. They were following them all the way down Michigan. It was a really beautiful sight, man, all the way to East Lansing.
And then you go talking to people and asking people that's part of the problem, like, come on, man, come on. It comes to a point where you gotta act like you really want some change and stop talking about it and saying you want it and with no action.
It was a beautiful thing. Michigan was covered when you couldn't get through. The city, the love that we got from the city, the people that were actually driving, the drivers, and the people that they were supporting. They were getting out their cars, putting their hand. They understood the purpose and the need for what we were doing that day. We had so many people jump in. I'm talking about white, black, Chinese that were just jumping in and coming to walk. And then, like I said, so I followed behind, I made sure, and it was a lovely thing. Nothing on the way to East Lansing, going down Michigan, eastbound, no problem. It was just marching. They were saying George Floyd's name, they were saying Breonna Taylor's name, no peace, no justice, you know what I mean? It was a peaceful protest. And You know, we got to East Lansing, and we got a little stuck. Like we got a little. It was like I don't know. The devil came out. You know what I mean? It was like, no, y'all got to stop right here, type of deal. When in reality, what they were just trying to do is march and make a turn, and they wouldn't let them march and make a turn. So back to AB. AB, he talked to the captain. I talked to the captain, and they ended up letting us go through. But before I go on for that, I like to say this. If you drive out to East Lansing right now, I guarantee you there's 12 cars in that parking lot. But they knew that we were coming, and there was only one buggy left in that parking lot. There was one buggy left in that one police cruiser in that parking lot. So it was like they kind of left the kids something to tear up, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that made it right to tear up that police car or nothing, but I've just seen so many times to where there's 24 and 30 police cars out there at a time, and this one day there was only one police car on a Sunday, which was just kind of, you know. But back to the story, AB did a wonderful job at coordinating. A few cats, Jalil Candy, shout out Jalil Candy, Arab's football coach. He had a little team with him that helped us control traffic, and we got the kids to turn around on Michigan. And it doesn't get talked about enough, but the Target building down in East Lansing was this close to being tore apart and rambled and rumbled like you've seen in so many other cities. But the good people that were with us, they stopped that. Like, we stopped that. We said, this is not what this is about. We were just trying to her. We weren't trying to tear up anything. We were trying to get people. We stopped them from going into Target. Shout out AB, shout out Jalil, shout out everybody that helped us that day. And we started marching back down Michigan. And that's sort of when the chaos started to happen. We got back down Michigan to Sparrow. Once we passed Sparrow and got to the light, we took a stop at the stoplight, like we were stopping light traffic, and we stopped. People were getting out their cars and people were saying they salute us and all these things. But we had two unruly people, one green truck that ran over, you know, a couple people. It's fine. He wanted to get in his driveway. You know, I kind of get it, but I just wish he would have handled it a better way. But once that happened, that began to get the crowd irky and jerky. We had a guy on a bike using the N-word profoundly over and over again, calling everybody, whites, blacks, whoever he could, the N-word. And so we had to stop him. He almost got stomped out. We had to stop him from doing that. And then after that, we basically get to the Lansing Center. Okay, so once we got to the Lansing Center, so it was a female. She was cool. She was talking to people in the protest. She knew people that were in the protest. She was saying, God, George Floyd. But when she got ready to go, it became an issue. She was ready to go. She started to shout out slurs, using the N-word, which she probably used with her friends all the time, and that's what people don't get to think. That's what people don't get it. Like, when you allow people to keep on using the N-word and say the N-word all the time, and when you're frustrated and you don't want to hear it, it's one of them. And that's what that was. That provoked that whole thing with her driving over and everything. And once she backed up and pulled off, then it was nothing else that really anybody could do but God, because she had hit two people. And once that happened, it just turned into a mob. And I'm sure everybody's seen the news and what happened after that, you know, the car burning up and all that stuff. But as far as the protest in general to that point, it was a beautiful thing. Having fun, y'all. They don't know what them cool doing what I was called to do. Yeah. Cam just walk in. I done prayed about this. I've been waiting on this. I'm thanking God for this. I told the book about this. They gon' be mad about this. It ain't no devils in this. Ain't no religion in this. It's only God in this. Cause I done prayed about this. I've been waiting on this. I'm thanking God for this. I told the book about this. They gon' be mad at it. It ain't no devils in it. Ain't no religion in it. It's all God in this. Cause I done prayed about this. I've been waiting on this. I'm thanking God for this. I told the book about this, they gon' be mad at it. It ain't no devils in
this. Check me out, now I flow, now I'm focused, I ain't glow. Might not catch this, I don't know. This is God, watch it, yo. Told you boys got some flow. Where your message tell me, bro? This is just the Holy Ghost. Now I got it, I won't let go. Watch my actions, they'll show. It is God, you don't know. This is power to get it sold. At the end of the day, it's all about souls. Got the law, wanna know. On my blood, I'ma let them know everything he told me, yo. Everything he told me, folks.
I done prayed about this. I've been waiting on this. I'm thanking God for this. I told the book about this. They gon' be mad about this. It ain't no devils in this. Ain't no religion in this. There's only God in this.
Cause I done prayed about this. I've been waiting on this. I'm thanking God for this. I told the book about this. They gon' be mad at it. It ain't no devils in it. There ain't no religion in it. It's all God in this. Cause I done prayed about this. I've been waiting on this. I'm thanking God for this. I told the book about this. They gon' be mad at it. It ain't no devils in it. There ain't no religion in it. It's all God in this. God told me get the ones that's lost and they gone. The ones that's like messed up and they ain't getting it at all. Plus I remember all the chances I done taken and blown. And I was grateful for the prayers and all the seeds that was sown. Off my knees I repented, I salute to the throne. I told the Lord, you know I'm 40, but I'm rapping this song. Living Word was a church, I learned to be bold and be strong. Pastor Chuck and Pastor Root, all the seeds done grown.
I done prayed about this. I've been waiting on this. I'm thanking God for this. I told the book about this. They gon' be mad about this. It ain't no devils in this. Ain't no religion in this. There's only God in this.
Cause I done prayed about this. I've been waiting on this. I'm thanking God for this. I told the book about this. They gon' be mad at it. It ain't no devils in it. There ain't no religion in it. It's all God in this. Cause I done prayed about this. I've been waiting on this. I'm thanking God for this. I told the book about this. They gon' be mad at it. It ain't no devils in it. There ain't no religion in it. It's all God in this. Hey, I told you boys it was on. Hey, that's what we doing about now. Yeah, I'm hella grateful for this. Yeah, I talked to God about this. Crack-a-lack-a look, boy. 2 hours ago we did. KK good look, y'all. Cameron even stopped by. Hey. Cause I had prayed about that. Waiting on that. I thank God for that. I told the book about that. Look back at it. For real. 2017. Baby, thank you for letting me get out.